Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come this evening. It's good to see you all here. We'd like to welcome you to a wonderful evening that's set up for you this evening, and it's an aromatic wine tasting event. And at this time, I'd like you to help me to put your hands together and welcome the organizer of tonight's event. That would be Miss Martina Mok.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our aromatic female wine tasting. We are gathered here tonight at this very special event to celebrate a tradition that has been around for thousands of years. The tradition of enjoying good wine, food and friends. Tonight, we are proud to continue the tradition. Before we start, I would like to announce a distinguished guest joining us tonight. Please welcome from town of Richmond Hill, Councillor, Mr. David Cohen. Now, I would like to welcome the host of our wine tasting segment, Mr. Martin Jordan.
Thank you very much, Christine. Martina has been exclusive to helping us out at J. Ciappelli Wines for about a year and a bit now. If you all remember, we had a tasting last year here at La Rosa Hall, and we covered the Ontario theme. This year, we will be covering wines of the world. Give us just a little bit of a variance, a little bit of variety, and with your help, filling out the surveys that we have there in front of you today, you can give us some suggestions and some ideas for perhaps future thematics for wine tastings. Also, perhaps, for more wine tastings as well, instead of just once a year, maybe we can go with 2, or seasonal, all different styles, different themes, different countries. The more you learn about wine, the more we learn, there's more to learn. It is quite a fascinating subject, and I can't think of anything more pleasurable. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here. And the rundown tonight will be tasting, first of all, as you can see, the rosé. And we're going to move into a Spanish wine from the Rueda area called the Limousin. We're going to go across the pond and slightly south of us here to Mexico, something that we decided to show to you tonight because it is very different, very new world, of course. We all know of California. This is slightly south of California. As a matter of fact, it's called Baja California, Mexico. Very interesting, a very good value wine as well that can be had at vintages. The last wine is somewhat the star of our show here, a red Bordeaux from the Pomerol region. Actually, the Saint-Emilion first growth of the Moulin Levant. Let's begin. Quick rundown, how to taste wine. We're going to use all our senses. We have some white paper in front of us. We're going to look at the wine, first of all. We're going to judge it against that white background. Any other wines that we are going to be tasting, you always judge against a white or a very, very neutral background so that you can remember what it is that you are tasting. Not just at the end of the night, but tomorrow, next week, next month, or the next time it comes back in stock at vintages, you'll remember that particular wine. That is why we want to put so much time and energy into tasting it. Not only are we going to taste the wine, make your own judgments, but we are going to taste it again with some food a little later on down the lines here. Now, the first wine we've chosen is a rosé. Rosés in the past have had a bit of a bad rap. That is, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, most of the rosés that were on the market were very sweet, very, shall we say, non-complex, very easy drinking, and that was sold to mostly people who were not that versed in wine. They were just starting to drink wine. We can all think of ourselves here as to trying different foods and such. We've got to move into certain things that are slow, that are easy on the palate, and then to bigger, brighter flavors. That could be spicy food, or it could be different foods of the world. And with wines here, what I love about rosé is that there's more and more rosés that are available at the LCBO, especially in the summer, of course, because it's a very seasonal style of a wine, that are very classically European. That is a drier style of a rosé. As a matter of fact, for the last 3 years in a row, the rosé category at the LCBO has grown by 40% each year. That is saying something. And I am so glad that it is actually becoming recognized, because there is nothing nicer on a nice warm, hot summer day, evening, than starting out with a beautiful rosé. And this is the classic European style. When it's very hot outside, a rosé is very thirst quenching and very refreshing. This one is an Italian rosé from the producer Zanato. Now we've already looked at the wine. Next thing, we're going to notice the aroma of the wine. What I like to do is, without swirling the glass too much, stick your nose in there and see what comes out of it. What comes to your mind first? Remember what comes to your mind first. That same thing is going to come to your mind in another month, 2 months, maybe 6 months down the lines. That is how we're going to remember what this wine is like. Now give the wine a swirl. On your table, you can lay the glass flat, swirl there, and you'll notice there is much, much more bouquet that's released. Because as the wine climbs the glass and falls back down again, we get evaporation, the alcohol evaporates out and releases much, much more aroma. We're going to go through this exercise with each wine. And we're going to do this because you are going to learn. We are all going to learn. We want to know which wine we like the best. Because I like the rosé doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily like that rosé just as much as me. This is the whole idea behind a wine tasting, is to learn about different wines and find the ones that you like the best. Another thing that I always like to point out is that our tastes are changing. Some tastes change much faster than others. My favorite food of 10 years ago is different than it is today. The type of ingredients and different spices or different foods and different markets that I'm shopping in today is different than it was about 10 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever the case is. Same with wine. Wine is food. Wine is just fermented grape juice. That's all it is. But of course, there's much, much more to it with all the pleasure and the history that we have behind it. I don't take wine as too much of a snobby sort of a thing here. It can be as snobby as you want it to be, but what I love about it is just the appreciation and the taste and how it goes with different kinds of foods, learning about so many different kinds of wines that are available from around the world. And that is a beautiful thing. So now, the taste. Okay, so we've got what we think about this nose in the wine. We might even take down a couple of notes. The best thing about taking notes is it helps you to remember it. Even if you write it down and then throw it away, it will help to remember it. Too many times, somebody comes up to us and says, oh, on the weekend I had a beautiful Merlot. Well, what kind was it? Well, it had a red label. Yeah, well, who made it? I forget. Well, where did it come from? I think it came from Australia. Doesn't help me at all when it comes to trying to figure out what wine that was. So that's why we're going to spend a little more time in tasting it and judging it so that we can remember it. Now, the same thing with the taste. To taste the wine, take a small sip first. Very small. The reason that we're taking a small sip is because we may notice some slight delicacies in the wine that we would not notice when we take our larger sip. So remember, how does that come across to you? Okay, next, a larger sip of the wine. Remember that air brings out the flavor. That's why you hear a lot of slurping sounds at wine tastings. When you bring that air across the palate with the wine, it brings out much, much more flavor. This is not exactly a sweet wine. This is not the Mateus or those baby, whatever they were, many, many years ago. It's a very classical European style, refreshing rosé. There is just a hint of residual sweetness in here, ever so slight, but it's very difficult to tell because of the nice balance, because of the nice acidity that we have there as well. It's very much like cooking. As a winemaker, you try to adjust the flavors as much as you can without changing the original terroir or the original signature of the grape to create what it is that you think, or the winemaker thinks, is the best style for this particular grape or the type of food that is going to be commonly served with it. Now, when we taste the wine, once again, what comes across to you? Does it remind you of a certain fruit? Are you getting any citrusy sort of characters in there? All the descriptors that you can use for wine is endless, actually. But if you can remember what that tastes like to you, then, once again, you'll have a much, much better chance of not only remembering this particular wine, but other wines of its style as well. You may like it, you may not. You may not necessarily like it right at the moment, but hold on and wait till we taste it with the food a little bit later on. The food will change the flavor of the wine, and the wine will probably change the flavor of the food to some degree. Different wines will change immensely. Now, take your notes. Remember, wine number one is a rosé that actually, it's a vintageous product. There's still quite a bit of it available. And it sells for $12.85. Through the summer months, we will find a very good array of rosés available at the LCBO from $7 all the way up to, well, I guess, you know, sky's the limit actually, of course. Spend $25, $30 on a rosé. But for $12.85, I think it's a pretty good value wine. And well, just wait and see what it's like with the food as well to make your final thoughts on that. Wine number two, to move into it. And incidentally, please, if anybody has any questions, I would very much like to hear them. A small group here, just let me know. I'd be very, very happy to answer your questions. Sometimes we can get a little technical with wines, and if anybody is interested in a little more of a technical aspect of the wines, then please let me know, and we can delve into that without a problem. Okay, next is our Spanish wine from Marqués de Riscal. Oh, incidentally, I am going to go back one notch here and tell you about the Zenato Rosé. It is from the Bardolino area, and it is called Chioretto. Chioretto is the Italian term for not red, not white. It's in between. And that's what that stands for. Chioretto. So our Spanish white here from Marqués de Riscal, one of the leading wineries from Spain, one of the older established wineries from Spain. As a matter of fact, this year it is celebrating its 150th anniversary of making excellent quality wines in Spain and exporting all over the world. Marqués de Riscal is very, very well known, and they put out a line of wines from very good value wines to very, very complex and very high quality wines of higher prices, we'll put it politely. Now this is called the Limousin. It is made from the grape of the Rueda region. They call it the Rueda. And it's the reason that it's called Limousin is because of the barrel that the wine is aged in. It's a French barrel made from Limousin wood, or in other words, from the Limousin forest in France. You can tell it right away, right on the nose first thing. First up is that wood character that comes through. It really shows well. It's got that round flavor that reminds me of a carpenter shop when I walk in. And Chardonnay is very famous for going into barrels. Matter of fact, one of the very few whites that goes into a barrel is Chardonnay. Here's something that's a little bit different. Personally, I've drunk a lot of Chardonnays, and I like to try things that are a little bit different. So when I first tasted the Limousin from Marquesa Riscal from Spain, I thought this was a fantastic wine. It's a heavier bodied wine. It goes with fuller bodied flavors. Anything that you would serve with the Chardonnay would certainly go well with this. But you'll also notice that it's got a pretty good acidity as well. The wood really comes through on the flavor as well, in the mid-range as well. Once again, another pretty good value wine actually at the LCBO vintages for $14.85. I only wish that they had lots and lots and lots and lots left, but it sells quite well. The vintages theme is to buy smaller amounts, but usually on a regular basis. But once it's gone, it's gone. It helps to create a rarity and a desire and a need for a particular wine. They bought the Roeda many, many times, but when it sells out, we won't see it again for 6 months, maybe 9 months down the line. I'm sure they'll be buying it again soon. If you go to lcbo.com and up in that top right-hand corner, punch in the name of the wine, you'll find that you can actually search out the stores that are available, that have this or any wine available. And it's kept updated very, very well within 2 or 3 days. So if you check the stocks on a Monday, chances are it may not have been updated quite as fast. So if you go home tonight and say, that Roeda was just fantastic, get on the computer and punch in the number of this particular wine, then it may tell you at your local store they have 15 or 16 bottles. And the reality is that if they've sold 3 or 4 of them over the weekend, well then that won't show up until Tuesday or Wednesday. But it certainly gives us a close enough idea as to where we can get the wines and how far we have to travel in order to get it. Not only that, but the stores have the telephone numbers on the list, or right on the website as well. You can always make the phone call to make sure that they have it in stock. I know I run around the town quite a bit here looking for certain wines for my customers, so it's something that we have to do when it comes to vintages. The general list products are there until they don't sell anymore, then they get delisted. But the vintages is where the products have a turnover, small amounts at a time. Any thoughts, any questions about our Spanish white here so far? Anybody like to know anything about it? You'll notice that it's got a pretty heavy color to it as well. Instead of just a light white or light straw color, it's quite dark. It's got that dark greeny gold color to it. And that is from aging in the wooden barrels. Because wooden barrels breathe, they actually oxidize. They're made of wood, they're porous. The air is introduced into the barrel as the alcohol evaporates out. Concentrates the flavors down in the barrel, but it does allow for an air gap. Many times a winemaker will try to top up those barrels as much as possible, and then it, of course, evaporates down. This comes down to the humidity of the cellar, or the humidity of the ambient where the barrels are being served. Where they're being stored. The more the humidity, of course, well, then the less evaporation that we're going to have from those barrels. But the danger of too much humidity is too much mold, and it could actually affect the winery itself or the barrels themselves. So it's a delicate balance of watching your humidity in a barrel room. If it's too dry, well, then we get too much evaporation out of the barrels. Too much evaporation means that the winer's losing too much money. It means that the angel share is being lost. We want to have a good balance of that particular, shall we say, action that's going on in the barrels. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 3 now. And this is the very interesting one that we're throwing in here because a lot of people have not heard of wines being produced in Mexico. It's dead south of California. It's in the right area, but it is in Mexico. That is going to change. Although LA Chetto has been at vintages for over 10 years, it's a great value wine. It was first released at $7. Last year it was released at $9.95. When they release it, it disappears very, very quick. The reason? Well, you can all taste that and judge for yourself. You notice that the color is very deep, very intense, inky purple color that comes from the top of the glass there, around the rim of the wine in the glass. It lets us know that we're going to have a big concentration. You swirl the wine and you look at the sheets or the coating of the wine on the glass. You can see that it kind of hangs around there for several seconds before it finally breaks down into little droplets or legs and falls to the surface of the wine. Gives us an idea of what the body is like with this particular wine. The nose on the wine, do we have any thoughts about what the aromas are? I'm getting some deep black fruit, some purple brambleberry fruit that's coming through there. Kind of a high-end fruit, not black cherries, but certainly maybe sour cherries that are coming through there. Okay. A little bit of fruit in the mid-range and lots of tannins. I'm getting tons of tannins that's coming through in this wine. Tannins is that very dry, scrape your tongue on the back of your teeth sort of character that takes over the finish of the wine. The tannins come from the skins of the grapes. As a matter of fact, the color comes from the skins. The longer the juice after the grapes are crushed sits on those skins, then the more color and the more tannin is extracted into the juice or into the wine. And there's lots of it here. There's an awful lot of people that like that big, dry character. This is not really a sipping wine on a hot afternoon on its own. This is definitely a food wine. This is a wine that's going to go with red meats, roasted pork, roasted chicken, with lots of flavor, lots of spices, lots of fresh herbs. This is a nice big full-bodied, lots of finished wine. But the thing about the finish of this wine is that mellows out with aging. This is going to be a nice wine if you want to lay down for several years. Wines change as it ages. The tannins finally soften out. It's like a spicy dish that you've made in the next couple of days. The leftovers are not as spicy anymore. All the flavors have come together like a stew or like a chili. And that's what the tannins do. The difference is it takes a little more than a couple of days. It takes many, many years for that to happen. It's always nice at this price here, it's $10.90 a bottle. Anybody who's even thinking about maybe starting a cellar, it would be a nice idea to buy 3 bottles at a time of any wine that you're serious about aging or keeping yourself. 3 bottles, one so you can drink it right away. Another one so that you can let it age for a little while, let's say 2 years, 3 years, try it again. And that 3rd bottle, so that you can, from the 2nd bottle, you can tell whether you need to drink that 3rd bottle soon, or will it still age even longer. Now, if you can buy a case, or 2 at a time as well, then that's even better. But most of us only have so much space restriction that we can use. Okay, so that is the LA Chetto Petit Syrah. Petit Syrah is a very interesting name. The Syrah is a very famous grape varietal from the Rhone Valley. It's now growing all over the rest of the world. But the Rhone Valley is a warm climate, warm area in France, very famous for its nice big, bold, humongous red wines. The farther south you go in France, down towards the Languedoc, Roussillon, Provence area, the hotter the climate. The climate itself makes a big, big difference, as we know, on the wines. Basically, when people are tasting wines blind, like we all hopefully did at the beginning there, what happens is most wine tasters will say, is this hot climate or cold climate wine? Hot climate means that the grapes ripen up. It means that the sugar levels go up and the acid levels come down, just like any fruit variety. when we have a wine from the south of France, very often it's a very big but fruity style of a red wine because of the high fruit level, or should we say the very high ripening levels of the grapes. Also usually higher in alcohol too, because that means that the sugar levels have become very, very high. And very often it's not really aged in a lot of barrels, or we don't extract a lot of the tannin levels as well, so we get more of a fruitier style of a wine. And as far as matching up with food, this would be something that you would choose with a fruitier style anyways, with spicier dishes, Southeast Asian dishes, regular Asian dishes, things that go very, very well with a fruit style of a sauce or a marinade. But when you start getting into a bigger red wine, such as that LA Chetto that we just tasted, when it comes to a mild meat like chicken or pork, then those tannins are going to take over. Those tannins are going to overpower the food, overpower the dish. Of course, the fish as well is the same thing. Very mild foods means that you're looking for more of a mild style of a wine so that it doesn't overpower your dish, your recipe. I would not be serving this particular red wine with very many fish dishes, actually, unless it was a very, very spicy fish dish, but even then I probably still wouldn't do that. Unless I really wanted to get a big, powerful red wine there to overpower the flavors in the mouth. And then you could do something like that. If you have a very oily fish, well then something of a nice, of a good acidity will help to cut that oil. What we're looking for with wine and food is to actually dissect the flavors that is in the wine, in the food, and what we taste. We taste 5 main flavors. The first thing on the tip of our tongue, we taste sweetness. Then, towards the back now, that's when we start to taste salt. And then, a little bit farther back in the middle is when we start to get protein or savory. Japanese word for it is called umami. And then at the very, very back is when we get bitterness or the tannins or that very dry character. That's why when we have a coffee, we tend to like to have a little bit of sweetness, or some people like to put a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of, perhaps a little bit of cream in there as well. And with me, I like just a little bit of each in my coffee. I like a nice, big, robust, dark, rich roast coffee, but I like a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of cream in there as well, not to make it sweet or creamy, but to balance the sweetness or the finish, to balance that bitterness of the coffee. When you taste coffee, we taste some flavor in the mid-range, and then we taste the bitterness that comes up on the back. And that is what the tannins are as well. It's astringency or bitterness. So when we are pairing up wines with foods, we want to dissect the dish and figure out what we have most of. When you think about acidity, then salt naturally goes well with acidity, and also sweetness goes nicely with acidity as well. So if you were going to be serving a fruit-based salad as a start, I think the rosé would make a nice dish for that, because there's just a hint of sweetness and the acid will neutralize in the mouth and help to bring out the flavors of both the wine and the recipe as well in the mouth. If it was a steak or lamb or roast beef, the rosé, the white wine that we had, wouldn't go. But what happens is the proteins assimilate with the tannins of the wine. The tannins will disappear completely with a wine like that Chetto that we just had from Mexico. And the tannins will help to bring out the mid-range protein of the red wine. I'm getting my words all mixed up here. Please bear with me for a second. The tannins will help to bring out the protein of the meat, and it will help to blend and mellow out in the mouth. I'd like everybody to realize it, to try that. We don't very often get a wine that's at the El Segundo that has as much tannin as that one has. It gives us a good chance to taste these things. Okay, so now one more thing about the Petit Syrah. It was originally from, the wine varietal, grape variety from south of France called Syrah is totally different than the Petit Syrah. The Petit Syrah is a grape variety originally from France called Palouracin. Palouracin has been lost through the decades. I guess so, it's kind of hard to say actually, but so they would just call it the small Syrah, the small wine from the Rhone Valley. So that's where that name comes from. Any questions? Anybody like any thoughts here? Okay, very good then. Now, let's try the Bordeaux. What do we think, what do we notice first of all about the Bordeaux? This is the Moulin-Lavant, Saint-Emilion, Pomerol region. 2003 vintage. What I'm noticing first of all is that it doesn't seem as deep and dark and purple and dense as the Mexican wine. I'm getting just a hint of that brick or slight garnet sort of a character or color that is starting to show up at the rim of the wine. So that's going to give us a bit of an indication perhaps of the body or the character of the wine. Another indication is to swirl the wine and check out the coating of the glycerols, actually, that's naturally produced during fermentation. My coating, or my sheets as it's called, is staying in the glass and it is not dropping into little droplets. It's going to be a very full-bodied wine. Now, nose. Aroma, what do we think? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Victor, what are you noticing about the aroma of this wine? Okay, well, I'm getting some smokiness, some cedars, a little bit of that wood sort of character that's coming through, but mostly cedar. Mostly it's like my grandmother's clothes chest when she would open it up to take out the winter clothing. It had this aroma. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing that can transport you back to another time and place in your life than the sense of aroma. The sense of aroma can take you to childhood, it can take you to a place, it can take you to a person, it can take you to something, someplace that was very present or very prominent in your life many years ago, totally forgotten about, and suddenly, there it is. Grandmother's cedar chest. That is it. And that is the most incredible thing about wine. And this is just the nose. How about any the character? So we're getting some nice fruit character that's in there. It's drying out towards the finish. Nowhere near as much of the tannin that we had with that Mexican wine. Very well balanced, very easy to drink. Still dries out towards the end though. See, I'm getting a dry character on the back of my tongue. So there is a fair amount of tannins in there, but nicely balanced. And it's definitely got a French character. That French Bordeaux character is coming out here. Now, this also takes me back to when I first started to drink and learn about wines, and I worked in a restaurant many, many years ago. And we would drink some of the better wines as a learning seminar. And I'm very happy that we did that. And this takes me back to that point as well. This is Bordeaux. This is Saint-Emilion. And it is a very famous region that was classified in 1855. Back in 1855, they took all the wines of France and they decided to classify them. They decided to give them some judgment. They wanted to tell everybody, to let everybody know how to buy wines and what different wines, what different characters we have, what flavors we have, and that's what this classification is all about. Ever since then, the rest of the world has taken that appellation control model and has done the same thing with their wines from around the world. We have the DOC in Portugal, DOCG or DOIC in Italy, and it's all a matter of classifying the wine. This is a first growth. This means that it was classified as a very good quality product, top of the line. And the grape that is used predominantly in the Saint-Emilion region is Merlot, with some Cabernet Sauvignon, and or with some Cabernet Franc, perhaps a little bit of Petit Verdot might be in there as well, but mostly Merlot. And the soils of Saint-Emilion is gravel, limestone, and clay. Depending on the vineyard, different ratios of those particular soils. The very old saying in the wine industry that says if our soils weren't the richest in the world, they would be the poorest. And that's because when nothing else can grow, you can always grow vines. You can always grow grapes. And this is something that they learned. The worst soil for growing vegetables or food is the best for growing wines. Of course, that will vary from different areas, different regions of the world, different climatic regions as well, different amounts of sunshine. It's all together. The French have a term for it. It's called terroir. The terroir is the combination of everything comes together to create what is in our glass here. So the terroir. I don't know what the terroir of Mexico is, where this wine comes from. I'd like to, but that one I don't know. I shall find out very, very soon. But in Saint-Emilion, there's a lot of areas of Bordeaux. There's a lot of limestone, clay, and gravel. The limestone, the more limestone, the better. Limestone is a mineral, and the vines will grow and they'll pull the minerals from the soil, and that's what comes out in the glass. So now, this particular wine comes from a very old house called Rivière. And the Rivière family have been purchasing vineyards first of all, and then creating chateaus or purchasing chateaus since the late 50s. And this particular one here, the Moulin Le Vent from Pomerol, is one of their best. 2003 is a pretty good year. 2004 was a little bit better, and 2005 was very, very good. This wine sells for $26, $25.95 actually. There's still a fair amount of it left at different stores from vintages. For something special, I think that it's a nice surprise, a nice little gift, a nice little treat for us. So, now, once again, any questions about the wines? Anything, as far as food goes, you know, this is a very classic Bordeaux, and yeah, you would tend to serve the classic pairing of the red meats, that sort of thing. But this one is nicely balanced, and I would still go with a roast pork with this one, or perhaps a roast chicken. This would be fine with that. Vegetarian dishes with a stronger ingredient, like spinach or kale or something with a little more flavor would be fine with this particular wine as well. The classic pairing, of course, is duck as well. But I find duck is a nice dish to go with reds and whites. It doesn't really matter. It's a very neutral dish for pairing of wines go. So now, any other comments, any thoughts about our wines here tonight? If there's anything that you'd like to know about them, anything else? The barrels that are used with the Saint-Emilion are 50% new and 50% used. And that way they still achieve a very nice balance in the final product here. It's not overly powerful in that wood aspect of things. Very nice balance. And that's what the French, or that's what Bordeaux is famous for, is realizing and learning and knowing what the right balance between all the components of the wine is, and what made it famous. So I think that just about does it for us here. How's our time going? Okay, I think we're just about on schedule here. So I think that's pretty well everything that I've covered about the wines. Now, like I said, we're going to be tasting the wines again with a food combination, or food prep that comes out as well. We each have some tickets to go with to the bar and pick up another sample of wine if you've finished yours here. And you'll see that the orange ticket is for the rosé, and the green ticket is for the Spanish white. The blue one is for the Mexican wine, and the purple is for the Bordeaux. what we're going to do now is, as I said, we're going to perhaps ask a few questions here. We're going to spice it up a little bit, and we're going to give away some prizes. So I'm also going to ask everybody to save the glass from one of your glasses, anyways, to taste the wine with the food a little bit later on. So a lot of us still have some wine in the glasses here, so that's fine. You can stick with that. Now, all right. So let's ask a few questions here and see let's have some fun. When I first started off the wine, the tasting, we tasted the rosé here, and I kind of went back to it and asked what Chioretto means. So I'd like someone to tell me what Chioretto means. Not you, Carla. Not you, Carla.
I'll do it.
Okay, what is it?
It means not red and not white.
Very good, very good. Okay. Yay! You're most welcome. Okay, so we're going to do some more. Now I volunteered someone to help me out here, and we're going to ask another question. All right, let me think. What did I say about that Spanish line? How old is Marqués de Riscal? They are celebrating an anniversary, a very... Okay, 150. Don't be shy. Come on, let's hear it. Very good. Now, what is the percentage of increase in sales of rosé at the LCBO? 40%. I didn't hear that voice. Let us hear it anyway. Can you speak up a little bit? Okay, now, let's see. Oh, here's a really hard one. What's the other name for petit syrah? Small! No, not good enough. No, I gave you a technical name for the grade. What I said was Palursin. Yay! Thank you. Okay. All right, now, what year did French wines become classified in France? 1855. Okay, so your hand.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, 1855.
Okay, very good. 1855. Year 1855. Now that you all know that, you'll hear this date come up every time. All right, let's see now. What is the name of our MC who's playing the music tonight? Carlo! Very good. Excellent, excellent. Okay, now we're getting a little silly. I think we should think about some food we're going to be doing some more draws later on. How many people drink wine every day? We're all pointing to that guy. Huh? I see that glass is going to come in handy. Speaking of glasses, over on our table over here, there is a beautiful display of different products, and Martina from Aromatic, their products are what you see on the table over there, and they represent a line of glassware called Fortessa. And Fortessa puts out very, very good quality glasses at a very, very reasonable price compared to the very well-known names like Riedel and Spiegelau. The nice thing about these particular glasses is, one of the best aspects about these glasses is that they are using a new advanced technology to blow the glassware. It's called, at one time, lead was used, and what the lead did was it gave the glass a little more flexibility. It didn't make it stronger, but it gave it more flexibility, and therefore it would not break quite as easily. But the Fortessa technology now is that they are using titanium oxide to blow the glass. So the heavier titanium oxide is around the rim of the glass, around where the bowl meets the stem, and where the stem meets the foot of the glass. It makes them incredibly strong. They're not unbreakable, but they are very, very strong. They are dishwasher safe, and there's many, many restaurants that are turning to the Fortessa glassware. I've been using them at home for about a year or so. A glass can increase the quality of the wine and how we perceive the nose, it brings out the nose, and how it enters our mouth over our tongue. When we can make a $10 wine taste like a $20 wine just because of the glass that it's in, I think that it's well worth the price of learning and investing in very good glassware. I went to a wine tasting once where they served two wines, two different glasses. At the end of it, they told me that it was the same wine that was in that glass. I did not believe it. I had to pour the wine into the two glasses myself before I believed it, before it was proven to me. It was quite amazing. The glassware that we have tonight is more of a standard size, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly okay. The nice thing about it is that it's the same size of glass that we will taste in many, many different restaurants or many, many different wine tastings at any official events. Many wine tasters themselves will use these style of glasses because it gives them a very unbiased, uniform flavor and aroma quality from all the wines that they taste day after week, after month, after year. But at home, they use a much nicer quality glass that's going to bring out much more in the wine. So I would suggest anybody who is taking our seminar tonight very seriously to think and actually do the ABC tasting in different glassware and learn how much the glass influences the flavor and aroma of the wines itself. It is well worth it. And if you can get a glass that doesn't break as easily, well then all that much better, wouldn't you say? I'm glad to see the food is coming out now. And I'm going to, actually, we're going to do a draw, and we are going to announce the winner of our blind tasting that we did when we all came in. I am terrible at blind tastings. It's something that you have to practice on. It's something that you have to taste, it's something that you have to do, I should say, very often. In my household, I'm the one that buys the wine, and I'm the one that opens it and serves it. It never gives me a chance to taste a wine blind. Rarely do I get a chance to do that. I've gone to many official blind wine tastings, and then it's a great experience, it's a great exercise, but I just do terrible at it. If we have a chance where there's two people or more, where we can serve the wine and not tell your partner what it is, and learn about it that way, it makes a big difference into these with trying these blind wine tastings. When I worked for an Ontario winery, our winemaker, her husband happened to be president of VQA, and every night he would go down to the cellar, bring up a wine, and pour it for his wife, Anne Sperling. She would try to guess what wine it was. First thing she used to say was, is it hot climate or cold climate? Then she would say what kind of grape, try to figure out what kind of grape variety. Then she would try to figure out what country, what does it have a signature. And then eventually maybe take a guess at the producer itself. Very difficult thing to do. Any wine writers, any wine journalists, any wine experts will never put their reputation on the line and guess blind what a wine is, unless they know a little bit more about it. Rarely will that ever happen. Very famous wine writer by the name of Robert Parker, the most exalted wine writer, wine authority right now in the world, was asked once, when was the last time you mixed up a Burgundy with a Bordeaux? And he said, when was lunch? In other words, even he would never ever try to guess a wine completely blind. The idea with our blind tasting tonight is to try and come close. There's an event in Toronto that happens in May every year. It's been 3 years now. It's called the Wine Challenge. It's open to anybody. It's free of charge. And you get the chance to enter the amateur category or the professional category. I've done it for 2 years in a row. Not done very well on it, but I already know that. When somebody wins an event like this, and actually comes closest to guessing the wine out of several hundred people, maybe even 1,000, I have all the respect in the world for that sort of person. It's incredible. That is one very trained palate. It's amazing. So what we're going to ask is that everybody will drop your blind wine tasting card into the box when it comes around, and while we are eating we'll have a look and we'll see if we can come up with someone who is closest to identifying that wine. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that just about wraps it up for me then, for at this particular moment.
For I never knew the art of making love, though my heart aches with love. You give your hand to me, and then you say goodbye. I watch you walk away beside the lucky guy. Oh, you'll never know the one who loves you so. For I never knew the art of heart. It's not for you. Afraid beside the lucky guy. Oh, you never know. You never
Oh, I thought mine was the one that went back.
Shelly Toad.
I gotta go around.
进来，进来，进来，进来，快！
Oh, I need to. ข่งกัน
อ๋อโอเค
Ivy Lamb.
中嘅你哋啊？嚇？有啊，邊個？
You.
中嘅呢個嚟啊？Okay, one more.
And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. The announcement, the winner of our blind wine tasting challenge. There's only one winner. Should we announce what wine it is? Okay, so let's. Oh, there it is. Now this is an Italian wine from Montepulciano in Italy. It is a 2004 vintage. It would be considered hot climate. In Italy we have cold climate and hot climate, of course, depending on where it is. Up in the north, it's considered a cool climate. Down in the south, in the Montepulciano region, from the Montepulciano grape variety, it is considered hot climate. Well, let's call it warm climate anyways. This product sells for $8.15 at the LCBO, by the way. So all you people who thought that it was a $50 Bordeaux, good for you. You can go buy 10 of them now, all right? Okay, this is the name of the winner. It is Bose Lee.
Ready? That's it.
Also, the many people who contribute the time and effort for this event. The wine tasting host, Martin Jordan, our DJs Carlos, and also warranties Raymond Lee, Peter Jia, Liana Yip. Good night.